and he would run and swim, play tennis a lot with Fritz Bennett's. And they, like the Williams, liked it so much that they obtained a property when they were done there.
They have a property up there now. And his daughter, Elaine, is buried on
that's
there,
right.
I believe.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. There's one story that I've heard about Governor Milliken and the Greater Detroit Chamber of Commerce meeting.
It's all
maybe
true.
It was the first meeting on Mackinac Island at the Grand Hotel after they decided to move their winter conference from the Caribbean or the southern U.S., where they were getting increasingly negative headlines, and they decided to let's change our image and let's go to the Grand Hotel. Tell us a little bit about all that.
Well, that was it's become a wonderful piece of business for us. But yes, it was on cruise ships, and they flew legislators and others to Florida and went out for 3 days, and I think drank and gambled and raised Cain.
Not much policy.
I don't think so. So they decided to have a land cruise at Mackinac. Leonard Barnes of AAA and Ron Steffens really made that happen. And the first year was pretty slim pickings. They were still wearing sailor hats and trying to make it look a little like a cruisey
like
thing.
It was a cruise, even though...
But they got about 150 people or so maximum. Probably had maybe 4 wives of the whole outfit. And but it started the thing. And it's always been difficult. It's always been on a weekend. But it's always been difficult to hold Greater Detroit on Saturday nights. They want to get home.
Sure.
And that hasn't changed.
Right.
And so the speaker for the Saturday night hoopla was Governor Milliken. Their first meeting of this thing, and he was there. And so we get down to the wire, and we got about 50, 60 people left in the building. We're set up in the back room with a bunch of chairs. And yeah, we got a lot of help, and I must have got 75 or 100 help out.
You got the staff.
Put on a sport coat and get a tie on and get in there and have dinner.
Fill up the seats. Make it look respectable. Right, so the governor wasn't humiliated by having nobody there speaking to an empty room. What can you tell us about other governors on the island? For instance, Jim Blanchard, didn't he play a little golf up there?
He had a hole-in-one. Jim Blanchard, I don't believe, played golf at all until he became governor. And I think that he learned what he learned in his early formative years of golf on our golf course, right down below his house.
Wow.
And he did play a lot. And he had a hole-in-one on a par 3 that's no longer there.
Well, maybe it's been memorialized
but he
or
is,
something.
I think he's become a pretty good golfer, and he still likes it a lot, and he still returns. But you know, the Blanchards were married at Mackinac,
right?
Up at the residence,
right?
And their dinner and reception was at the hotel following that.
And he was also obviously instrumental, I think, in getting the Democrats to come up.
No question.
To the Grand Hotel.
And Jim used that facility to his advantage, and I'm not suggesting others haven't as well.
Sure.
But he used it very, very wisely, I think. And he had gatherings there almost every weekend he was there. But the Blanchards used it a lot during their years.
What about John Engler?
John Engler came to use it more in his later years, but he was not a heavy user of it. I wouldn't say. I think he used it more as a retreat.
Did he bring the
sure he did.
Triplets up when they?
Yes, he did.
Because they were born about 5 years into his
that's right
tenure as governor, and maybe after that.
They certainly did, and
yeah,
they were up this last summer. They're big young women now.
Oh, really? Oh, well, absolutely, they are going to 3 different schools in Washington D.C. and with Michelle driving them all over the place.
I'm sure.
John Engler says she should get her chauffeur's license at this point. Let me ask you about one person that we've mentioned before, Bill Doyle. Who was he, And what was his role on Mackinac Island?
Bill Doyle was from Menominee, and he served in the Senate, I think maybe one term, here in Michigan Senate, maybe 2 terms, but I think one. He got the taste of Lansing, is my opinion, became a very successful lobbyist for the chain stores, and I think probably one of his great accounts was Kroger. And became effective as a lobbyist here, and he liked Mackinac, and he got himself appointed to the Park Commission.
And this was in the 30s
I
or
would
40s?
think early 30s.
Early 30s, okay.
And he was bright enough to figure out who the hell was running things at Mackinac Island, and he became quite friendly with the boat people, with the carriage people, the business people. And he and my uncle were cohorts in getting a lot of things done at Mackinac Island. He then and my uncle had a horrid fallout. We were filming this time for Keeps in 47 or whenever
I think
it
it was
was.
1947. Esther Williams.
Esther Williams.
Swimmer, and Jimmy Durante was in the
That's
film,
right.
wasn't he? Yeah.
And anyway, the movie wanted to close the front street to film.
A front street meaning
Being right, the street right in front of the hotel,
Okay.
which we own, and we proved that during that time, and we have carefully preserved that. But
Yeah.
so the old man closed it. Bill was chairman of the Park Commission. He said, "Well, you can't close it. It's a public street." The old man said, "Yes, we can. It's my street."
Well,
So
do
we
you
closed
think
it.
it was just a pure power thing, or do you think Doyle was maybe concerned that if you close the street, it's going to inhibit commerce or trade or something?
I think he
or
was
what?
concerned it was going to inhibit someone from up the bluff trying to come down the street. But there was
Okay.
some animosity between the two of them anyway.
At that point, or had been all
They were
along,
never
various things?
they were never as close as I was to Bill.
Yeah.
They were
It was never
respectively.
they were cautiously respectful
That's
of each other.
well put.
They were.
That's
Right.
Right.
It was not an
They were
amicable
never.
relationship.
They were not in love
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. And
So anyway, this got into the press, and they both were able to generate that locally. And finally, the old man told Doyle, "You cannot come on our property."
you
Banned.
personally.
You personally. So that was kind of a challenge to the Irishman, and that's developed a little more stuff going, and that carried on for a couple years.
Wow.
And he would not let Bill Doyle in the building,
Jeez.
and he certainly let the help know that he wasn't welcome. And
Here he is, chairman of the Parks
That's
Commission.
right.
That's amazing. Wow.
you got to remember, we were leasing the golf course from the state
Right.
at that point.
Well,
Still
now,
are.
if that was 47, that was Kim Sigler. That was
Was
when
it?
he was governor in 47, 48, 2 years only before Soapy Williams beat him in 48.
But anyway, they finally. My uncle tells it that they saw each other in the street downtown one afternoon and looked at each other and said, "We better end this bury the hatchet business," and they did.
They did.
But it was never a total
Right.
love affair.
But as far as it went, it sounds like your uncle won.
Won that part of it. That's
Yeah,
true.
Absolutely.
We do own the street. I don't think there's any question.
Nobody's challenged
Well, we have
little
been careful of that. We still
Yeah.
close it a couple days a year,
that. Yeah.
every year, and document it.
What about the relationship between the Grand Hotel and the Mackinac Island Park Commission? Was it a good one?
In the Woodfield Doyle days, the commission had people on it that had been on forever and ever. There was term limits was not even
Thought of.
at this point.
Right.
And both of them were certainly entrenched in Mackinac Island. Doyle used to call himself the King of Mackinac, and my uncle didn't like that too much.
I can imagine.